Welcome, everybody, back to a special edition of the Raw Prospect Football Podcast. It is Sunday, June 28th, the year of our Lord 2026. My name is Michael Ween, your host tonight. I'm coming to you late night because I wanted to get some content out into and onto the YouTube channel here at about 10:30 p.m. Central Time here in Austin, Texas, because I haven't spoken to you guys for a while, and I wanted to talk about the San Antonio Spurs in the great start to the offseason that they are off to with this past week's 2026 NBA draft and how that has come and gone and how the Spurs did in said draft with one first round pick and 3 second round picks to start and where they ended up. So I'm going to come on here tonight, get some content out. Let's discuss where the Spurs stand after a great run through the NBA playoffs to the NBA Finals, where they ultimately ran into a juggernaut, a postseason juggernaut that is, in the New York Knicks, a team that went 16-3 throughout the NBA playoffs. 2 losses to the Hawks and 1 to the Spurs, and they just obliterated everything in their path. So I wanted to start off by saying congratulations to the New York Knicks. Jalen Brunson, is a absolute legend in New York forever. That entire team, no matter where they go on their NBA journeys, will no longer have to buy another drink at a bar, another meal in the city of New York. And just congratulations as a whole to most New York Knicks fans. Some of them, well, they don't need to be mentioned, don't deserve to be celebrating this championship because of the way that they acted during the finals. But most, every fan base has some bad apples, including the San Antonio Spurs fan base, which is the fan base that I'm part of. I'm sure there are Spurs fans out there that are as immature as some of the Knicks fans are that acted up during the finals. Anyway, congratulations to most Knicks fans out there. It was 53 years, well deserved. One of the greatest runs I've ever seen through the playoffs. 16-3, an incredible accomplishment. Congratulations to the entire team, and especially Mike Brown. Have a lot of respect for Mike Brown, and ultimately the gamble that the Knicks made last offseason to get rid of Tom Thibodeau and hire Mike Brown paid off big time with the championship. So congratulations to the Knicks. But I'm here tonight to talk about the Spurs. I think after losing the NBA Finals, as a team that, in my humble opinion, with this young core, that this season consisted of Victor Wembanyama in his age 22 season, Steph Castle in his second year at age 21, and Dylan Harper in his rookie year at age 20, along with Devin Vassell at 25 years old, and De'Aaron Fox being the elder statesman, who obviously struggled big time throughout the playoffs, especially in the Oklahoma City series and the NBA Finals series, but we're not here to talk about that right now. They came into the season not having the expectation to reach the finals. They ultimately did. They're ahead of schedule with this young core. It goes without saying. Like, De'Aaron Fox is the elder statesman on the team. But I think the lack of experience in some of the issues in the front court ultimately caught up to them. Bad matchup in the finals against the Knicks, and the Knicks won fair and square. I think the Spurs came into the offseason after losing that series with a clear vision for what they wanted to accomplish this offseason. And that vision was plain and simple. Let's get some enforcers. Let's get some big bodies. Let's get some goons around Victor Wembanyama. Because having Luke Cornett and a bunch of non-playable bigs after Luke Cornett behind Wemby is not enough. Not nearly enough. So they came in with a plan. We want to get bigger in the front court. This draft, that's what we are going to do any way we can make that happen. And boy, did they accomplish that. They come into draft night this past Tuesday night with the number 20 overall pick. What do they do with that number 20 overall pick? They draft Jaden Quaintance, a center out of Kentucky, 18 years of age. Now, let me lay this out for you. Injuries, unfortunately, as you guys know, are a sad staple of sports, given how hard these athletes, whether it be football, basketball, baseball, whatever sport you want to put out there or you want to throw out there, given how hard these athletes work, especially at the collegiate level, to put themselves in the best position to be their best selves, to make their dreams come true come draft night. Injuries are a sad staple of sports that can sometimes get in the way or be an obstacle. And in basketball, we know that some of the most fearsome injuries to a player are Achilles and ACL injuries. Okay. For the Achilles, you can have an Achilles rupture, ACL tears. We all know, if you've watched basketball long enough, even if you're just a casual basketball fan, those can be devastating or career-altering injuries, especially for big men like Jaden Quaintance, because of how crucial each of those ligaments and tendons are to our explosiveness and athleticism. So that's kind of where we sit right now with this draft pick of Jaden Quaintance. 6'10" and a quarter, 260, 265 with a 7'5" wingspan. Only 18 years old. He's incredibly young. In fact, he doesn't turn 19 until I believe next month. So his rookie year, whether he plays or not, and we'll get to that here shortly, it will be his age 19 season. So the first perk of this pick for San Antonio is he's super young. He's super young for where he's supposed to be in his development, only 18 years old. He was playing at age 17 as a freshman at Arizona State. So this guy's super young, and even if he does have to miss some time during his rookie season, or even if he doesn't play during his rookie season, he'll only be 20 years old in his second year in the league. So that's the first benefit to taking a chance on Jaden Quaintance with the number 20 overall pick. Okay, but we're in this situation right now where he struggled to come back last year from a partial ACL tear that he suffered during his standout freshman season at Arizona State. And to be clear, during that standout freshman season at Arizona State, he looked like he was going to one day be a lottery pick. But unfortunately, he suffers that injury. He barely played this season at Kentucky before he had to shut things down for rehab. But in the 5 games he played last year, he did show the skills that I think made him one of last season's top transfer targets in the portal when he entered into the portal from Arizona State, and what a guy that once was a projected future lottery top 10 NBA draft pick before the injury happened. Okay, so that's kind of the situation that we're sitting in. So what is the sell on Jaden Quaintance, and why is this such an exciting pick for San Antonio? Why do I like this pick so much, even though there is a good chance he does not play his rookie season for San Antonio because of the injury? And the Spurs have, because of what they do with their next move in this draft, they're going to have the luxury of playing it slow with Jaden Quaintance and his health. You don't want to bring this guy back until he's absolutely 1,000% healthy. Take your time with him. But if you were to ask me, sell me this pin, sell me on the idea of Jaden Quaintance for San Antonio, what would I tell you? Well, I would say if you want to swing for the stars in this draft, why not gamble on a potential franchise changing, and I emphasize that word, franchise changing defender, a potential franchise changing defender who is a dominant athlete at the center position when healthy and who has massive room to grow offensively. Why not take a gamble? You're a team in an organization coming off a season where you know that you're way ahead of schedule based on the age of this roster. We've probably got 2 or 3 years before Wimby and Castle and Harper are even like touching the beginning of their primes. And that might be putting it lightly. Next year, Harper's 21 years old going into his second year. Next year, Wimby's going to be 23 going into his fourth year. And he probably gets that extension this offseason. That's going to get taken care of. Steph Castle's only going to be 22 next year. Like, this team is so young. They're ahead of schedule. They already made the finals, but they desperately need it. And this was proven against the Knicks, where they struggled to rebound because Wimby was getting pulled out of the paint with Karl-Anthony Towns, who is one of the best counter punches, if not the best counter punch to Wimby, especially offensively in the league. He struggled down the stretch of that series with some foul trouble, but early on, it was a problem for San Antonio. When Wimby gets pulled out of the paint, the Spurs just flat out weren't big enough, weren't strong enough, weren't tough enough to handle the size and the physicality of the Knicks on the interior with Mitchell Robinson and Cat, and even some of these bigger wing players like OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges and some of these guys. Like, the Spurs flat out needed more size. They need more size in their front court. They need more rebounding in their front court. They needed more than just Luke Kornet. Luke Kornet had his ups and downs throughout the playoffs. He ultimately made one of the biggest game-changing plays in Game 7 in OKC, which I'll never forget, with that chase down block on Isaiah Hartenstein. But there were times in the last couple series against Oklahoma City and in the New York series in the finals where Luke Kornet was just flat out unplayable, or he wasn't giving the Spurs what they needed, wasn't giving them enough of it. So what do? You go out and you draft this guy and Jaden Quaintance, whose sell really comes from his defensive athletic dominance. He's a guy that for the next couple years, whenever it is that he starts playing for San Antonio, could actually, like, if he hits, he could turn into one of the best defensive anchors, maybe the best bench big in the entire league. That is his potential. His potential could be, this is a guy that we can play alongside Wimby in our front court if he can develop his offensive game. And we've got maybe the greatest defensive front court you've ever seen because of the way that he covers space vertically and laterally, the way that when he's healthy, he can switch onto the perimeter. Like, he showed in the defensive potential he showed in his freshman season at Arizona State was unbelievable. That's really the sell here. Now, offensively is where he's going to need to grow. But But I've seen the Spurs develop bigs. I trust their evaluation on acquaintance. But that's ultimately like what's going to determine his ultimate ceiling in the league is how much of an offensive game can he develop. He showed some solid touch at the basket. He can finish dunks, obviously with his size, but he doesn't really have a jumper of any sort, shape, or form. Um, he's an okay passer, but he's not great at handling the ball. So like he's got a lot of work to do offensively, but the defensive upside and the rim protection when he's healthy is unbelievable. There isn't a better defensive anchor in this draft class when he's healthy, when Quaintance is healthy. He's got a great mind for timing, positioning, anticipation. He's always in the right place at the right time. And he's got genuinely great athleticism vertically and side to side. He showed that at Arizona State. He showed that in the couple games that he played at Kentucky this year. He's a guy who can come off the bench if he's healthy for the Spurs the next couple of years and anchor the 5 spot, give you rebounding, give you rim protection, take a load off Wemby, give you more depth outside of Luke Cornett, do the dirty work, and be a legitimate defensive anchor for the bench unit. And who knows what he can turn into if he ultimately reaches his full potential. But it's the defensive versatility, the rim protection, the athleticism when he's healthy, and the room to grow offensively, and the fact that he's only 18 years old that makes this a very, very intriguing pick for San Antonio. Even if, again, he does not end up playing much, or if at all, his rookie season. Because his second season, he'd only be 19 years old. Now, we all know the concerns. It's will he ever be 100% healthy? That is ultimately a concern with lower extremity injuries of this sort for guys that are of his size, 6'9", 6'10", 250, 260 pounds, however much he weighs. But this is a medium risk that the Spurs could afford to take based on where they are in their arc of development as a team with the potential for massive payoff, for massive reward in the future. So I don't know that I can give it an A. I mean, long term, it could end up being an A. You know, if you were to ask me my draft grade for Jaden Quaintance, I'd probably say it's a solid B, B plus pick. Like, actually, I'd say it's a solid B. Like, if he turns out to be anything close to what I think he could be, he's a legitimate defensive anchor, all NBA type defender who comes off your bench throughout his rookie deal, maybe even starts at some point, that you can mold offensively. And he's a big body who will protect Wemby, do the dirty work, come off the bench, anchor that defensive unit, because the defense in the playoffs just totally fell off the map when Wemby went off the floor. They needed more help around Cornette, especially at the rim. That's what he is. Mid risk, because we know he's coming off the injury and we know how that can sometimes go downhill with guys of his physical build and overall prototype, but it's got potential for massive payoff. So that was kind of the high risk move. But what did the Spurs do after that? They said, okay, we just drafted Quaintance, and we're very excited about what this could turn into. But we're doubling down. Denver, they draft Terrace Reed out of UConn with the 26th pick of the NBA draft. And funny story, I was like, okay, I've seen what I need to see. I like the Quaintance pick. I like the upside here. There's stuff to get excited about. We've got 3 second-round picks tomorrow. It's a very deep draft. We could probably get a good player or two. Maybe we'll make some trades. Who knows? Like, I was just like, okay, time for me to go to bed. It was late. So I turn off the TV right before the Denver Nuggets draft Terrace Reed. I get back on my phone like 10 minutes later, and the Terrace Reed pick by Denver traded to San Antonio. And I'm like, oh, so this is what we're doing now. This is what the Spurs plan is. I see it now. You went out and you got this should have been lottery pick. This absolute high ceiling like lottery ticket in Jaden Quaintance, who you know might not play a majority of his rookie season. May not play at all his rookie season, but you really like his potential. So you say, okay, we've got 3 second-round picks, but we only have so many roster spots. I mean, most of this roster, as far as I know, is coming back. They're gonna re-sign Champagnie. At least they better. And outside of like Harrison Barnes and some of the end of the bench guys like Bismack Biyombo and Mason Plumlee, I'd venture to guess that maybe one free agency addition. Maybe it's a shooter, like a 3-and-D type to kind of replace Harrison Barnes, or maybe it's another forward type that can space the floor a little bit. Whatever it is. My point being, most of this roster is coming back. 3 second-round picks. We don't need to use all those second-round picks. And we've got, through this rebuild, Brian Wright did a fantastic job of like stockpiling draft assets. So what did he do? He packaged I think the Spurs' first second-round pick at like number 35, plus like a couple other seconds down the line that I don't really give a shit about now that the Spurs are contenders, like legitimate championship contenders. They have no use for those second-round picks. What do? They trade for Terrace Reed. So I'm like, oh, you got Jaden Quaintance, but now you're getting an insurance policy. Now you're doing the total opposite of that. This guy in Terrace Reed, 6'10", 265 pounds, another goon to surround Wemby with a 7'4" and a quarter wingspan, who played 4 years in college and who's 22, probably will be 23 at some point in his rookie season. I see what we're doing here now. This is the high floor, immediate reward pick. This guy can play NBA minutes right away and help this team in a variety of ways that it so desperately needs. This is the guy that's going to contribute earlier to this team and is ready to contribute right now while we wait on Jaden Quaintance. Masterful planning here. Masterful by Brian Wright. You don't have to give up anything, a couple second-round picks, and you get the insurance policy for anything that may go wrong or in case Jaden Quaintance can't play that much this year. Starts his career out at Michigan. His tenure there was a mixed bag. He was a beast on the offensive glass. He showed flashes defensively, but those were some bad Michigan teams. His sophomore year, he didn't really make the leap that he hoped for. Michigan was terrible, 8-24 that year. Hard to believe 2 years ago they were that bad, to now winning the national championship this past year. So after his sophomore year, he goes into the portal, and as soon as he puts on a Husky uniform and gets to Stores, to play for Dan Hurley. He looks like a completely different player. His junior year, he was Big East Sixth Man of the Year coming off the bench for UConn. As a junior, high-level finishing, elite rebounder, outstanding defensive playmaking, improved passing. He just looked like a completely new player than he was at Michigan. He comes back for another year, and he helps UConn go on an incredible run to the national championship, where they ultimately fall short to Michigan, but nevertheless, he's first team All Big East. And he saved his best for the end of the season in the NCAA tournament, where he was dominant. During the big dance, in 6 games, Reed averaged 19.5 points per game, 13.2 rebounds, 2 assists, 1.5 blocks, and a steal per game. And he was really one of the biggest stars, one of the biggest draft risers, ultimately, of the entire NCAA tournament. I remember that first round game where he put up 31 points and 27 rebounds. Just an incredible run in 2 years at UConn. And now he's a first round pick, drafted by Denver, traded to San Antonio. And this is the insurance policy for Jaden Quaintance, at least in the short term, which is why I like the move. You're doubling down on size. What's the sell the pen pitch for Terrace Reed? Absolute killer on the glass, offensively and defensively. Reliable finisher around the rim. Proven passer out of the short roll. Outstanding rim protector in drop coverage. And he can hold his own in space when he switched on to smaller players. He is a switchable player at the center position. Check, 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 check. All things the Spurs need on this roster. And he can play next year, can play right away. He can give them valuable minutes right away off the bench because he's got the size, he's got the strength, and he played 4 years in college. So he's not a baby coming out. He's not an 18-year-old, 19-year-old kid. He's 23. He's a grown man now. And look, his game might see, like, you might go watch the Terrace Reed film and you might say his game seems a bit boring, right? He's an older center prospect who doesn't really space the floor. And that's kind of the one downside to this pick, is I still think the Spurs need another forward who can space the floor and shoot a little bit. Maybe they'll look for that in free agency, maybe like a John Collins type or Rory Hachimura, depending on the price. There aren't really that many options out there. But either way, like, he's not a floor spacer. That's probably the one downside to this pick. He's not really a shooter. But he checks most of the important boxes for a modern big man who can play right away. He's a reliable finisher around the rim and in the paint. He's an excellent rebounder, which the Spurs so desperately need coming off their bench around Wemby. He's an intelligent passer, a really intelligent, high IQ player. You know, guys coming out of the Dan Hurley system are going to be that because they're coached so hard. And he's a true, like, solid defensive anchor. He can give them immediate minutes at the 4 or the 5 off the bench and help Wemby and help aid in managing Wemby's minutes during the regular season. It's not just Luke Cornett anymore. He's going to be immediately better than anything that, like, Bismack Biyombo could have provided this past season. You throw in his strength, and I think, like, he's going to contribute big time in his rookie season. The thing that most excites me about the pick is the rebounding. He's an exceptional rebounder. Just absolutely an absolute dog, both on the offensive and defensive glass. He's got those excellent instincts for figuring out where the ball is going to come off the rim, allowing him to get in the right spots for rebounds. And ultimately, like that was one of the biggest issues for San Antonio because they were playing Julian Champagnie at the 4. And as much as I love Julian Champagnie, he's 6'7". He's pretty small. He's a good rebounder for his position, but he's pretty small. And against like Mitchell Robinson and Karl-Anthony Towns, when Wemby's being pulled out of the paint and is not in there to rebound, you need other guys who are willing to do the dirty work. You need a guy who has a knack for just rebounding and doing the dirty work, boxing out, getting on the offensive glass, finishing around the rim, coming off the bench, giving the team a spark, making some plays defensively. Terrace Reed checks all those boxes. He fills an immediate need. He's going to contribute right away. To what extent will he ever reach being an NBA All-Star? Probably not. That's not what this pick is intended for. This is to fill a specific need. And ultimately, when you combine these 2 first-round draft picks by the Spurs, now you're looking at a front court with Victor Wembanyama, obviously, who has some work to do over the offseason. We're not going to talk about that tonight, maybe in a different podcast. But you have Victor. You now have – we will set Quaintance aside. You have him for the future. Whenever his time comes, it comes. Hopefully it's near the end of this. Hopefully we get to see him some this year. But if not, I'm totally fine. We got Terrace Reed. You got Terrace Reed. You have Luke Cornett. And you can go find someone else in free agents that can space the floor. You've solved your size issues on the inside. You solved your rebounding issues on the inside, especially when Wemby's not on the floor. You got a playable big who can do the dirty work, finish around the rim, post up, make some plays out of the short roll, fills the need. And then you've got Quaintance waiting in the wings when he's ready. And if he hits, well, I mean, then you just got a monstrous front court rotation for years to come. And you solved your front court issue. And now it's just up to the development of this young core. So I give the Terrace Reed pick a B+. I give the J.M. Quaintance pick a solid B. I think the Spurs had a solid B+ draft. I think they did excellent once again, filling their biggest need with 2 players, one high ceiling but kind of risky pick that they can afford to make, and one high floor guy who's obviously very talented and is going to contribute right away. And both solve the size issue, both solve the rebounding issue, both solve defensive issues off the bench. They solve a lot of issues for this roster. They also made 2 second-round picks with Malik Brown and Jacoby Gillespie. I'm not going to talk about those 2 guys tonight. Maybe sometime else because it is getting late. But I really, really was pleased with the Spurs draft once again. This time, they didn't have a pick in the top 4. So we'll see where the Spurs offseason goes from here. We're probably going to add one significant piece in free agency, maybe a mid-level exception type. I expect them to extend Wemby on a supermax deal, a deal that obviously wouldn't kick in next year, but the year after that, once his rookie deal is up. And then you still have Steph Castle on a rookie deal for another 2 years and Dylan Harper on his rookie deal for another 3 years. So that's kind of the honeymoon, like that's the advantage of where the Spurs are right now, is in they're not in that like money crunch that OKC finds themselves in, as they've now had to pay Shea, they've now had to pay Chet, they now had to pay J Dub, and now you're seeing them kind of maneuver. And for OKC, it's probably not ever going to be that big of a problem because they just draft so well and they're such a smart organization. Um, and they'll make the necessary moves on the margins to just continue to be awesome. But the Spurs don't have to worry about those problems for another 2 or 3 years, which is really really nice. And they've already made the finals. And these players are only going to get better supposedly going into next year. So I'm super excited about what the Spurs accomplish with this 2026 NBA draft. I'm super excited to see what free agency ultimately brings. We've had a ton of trades around the league lately. I'm gonna have to get Emmy on to discuss more draft and more NBA here sometime soon. But that's gonna do it for me tonight, guys. I gotta get to bed. Make sure if you're not already and you like what we do here, you like and subscribe. Doesn't cost you anything. Doesn't take you but like 1 or 2 seconds. Just hit that subscribe button if you're not subscribed already, and like the show. We greatly appreciate it. What did you guys think of the Spurs draft or your favorite team's draft? Comment that down below. We'll be back soon with more NBA draft content, and I got another show coming here in the next couple of days where we're going to talk on Deep in the Heart of Longhorn Sports about Texas football recruiting and some other college football related topics. For Michael Ween, this has been the Raw Prospect Football Podcast Special Edition, San Antonio Spurs NBA 2026 Draft Recap. We'll see you next time. Peace.